Hello, I'm Catherine Becker Van Haste, State Director for Senator Bernie Sanders. Thank you for joining Bernie's virtual Seniors Town Hall this evening. Bernie will begin in a minute. This evening's call will give Bernie an opportunity to provide you with an update from Washington and hear directly from you, Vermont seniors, about your experiences and your concerns. If you would like to ask a question during this call and you are on the phone, please press *3 at any time and you will be connected with our team. We will try to get to as many callers as we can this evening. To do that, we ask that you keep your questions concise and please focus on issues facing older Vermonters. If you are joining us via our live stream, you can ask a question via the chat box and we will ask your question live on the call. So again, if you're on the phone, please press *3 on your keypad now if you know what you would like to ask Senator Sanders. And with that, I would like to introduce our Senator, Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, please go ahead.
Hey, Katie. Thank you very much. And let me thank everybody who is joining us this evening. And let me take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy and wonderful holiday season and wonderful new year. Normally, at this time of year, what our office does is hold holiday parties, generally in Burlington, Brattleboro, Bennington, Barre, St. Johnsbury, Rutland, where many, many hundreds of people come out. And if I'm able to, I get to it. We have wonderful music, often from young people, and we have a great time. But obviously, this year, because of COVID, that is not the case. So we're doing the best that we can do and having this virtual event. This has been a rough year for everybody. In fact, I cannot think of a more difficult year. It's a year, obviously, that we have struggled with this pandemic. And while Vermont, and we should be very proud of this, has done better than many other states in controlling the virus, we have been hit hard as well. And just right now, at this moment, in Vermont and throughout the country, we're seeing record-breaking numbers of people who are being infected, record-breaking numbers of hospitalizations, and a whole lot of people are losing their lives as well. There is very good news on the horizon, and that is in a remarkably short period of time, a number of companies, including Pfizer and Moderna, have come out with vaccines, which are just right now, literally as we speak, coming into states around the country and being given to healthcare workers who are most exposed to the virus. But the vaccines are out, and this is a significant breakthrough in helping us to address this terrible, terrible pandemic. I think emotionally, this has been a very difficult year for everybody. It is hard to be as isolated as we all have been. For those of us who are older, we are unable to see our kids or our grandchildren in the ways that we would like to. For workers, people are going to work and they're worried, are they going to get exposed to the virus? For the kids in Vermont, and I've got 7 grandchildren, and none of them are, well, I shouldn't say that. Some of them in Burlington are now going to school more or less regularly, but it has been a very, very difficult time for the kids not to be able to hang out with their friends, do athletics, do the things that teenagers or little kids normally do. So this has been a tough year. On top of that, we are dealing with issues like climate change. We look out on the West Coast and we see states in California and Oregon and Colorado and literally millions of acres burning. We have racial justice issues out there, systemic racism. And we have an economy today which is in very, very rough shape. And in fact, some of the economists are telling us that for working families, these are probably tougher times than we have seen since the Great Depression of the 1930s. So add all of that together, man. That is a lot of stuff that we are all dealing with. I want to tell you a little bit what is going on here in Washington. Which is where I am. I prefer to be back in Vermont, but I am here in Washington because with a little bit of luck, they are wrapping up what we call a coronavirus emergency relief bill. As some of you will recall, back in March, Congress virtually unanimously, with President Trump's support, went forward on a $2.2 trillion emergency relief bill, which was the largest single appropriation of its kind in the history of the country. But it was a response to the serious problems that we were facing. And what that bill did is it provided $600 in supplementary unemployment benefits for unemployed workers. And what it also did, very importantly, is to provide a $1,200 check for every working class adult and $500 for their kids. So a family of four would get 24 plus 1,000, $3,400, which at a time when people in our state and around the country are struggling to feed their kids, struggling to pay their rent, struggling to go to a doctor when they get sick because they don't have enough money, that was a real step forward. Right now, months overdue, this should have been done many, many months ago, Congress is wrapping up another coronavirus relief bill. And it is, I have to be honest with you and tell you that while there are a lot of good things in it that will help Vermont and help the country, it does not go in any way as aggressively as it should in dealing with the many, many crises that we are facing. And one of the areas where it was woefully inadequate is it did not provide the kind of what we call direct payment to working families throughout the country. At the end of the day, if you are struggling to feed your kids, if you can't afford to pay your rent, if you're going deeper and deeper into debt, and if you don't have any money to go to a doctor in the middle of a pandemic, I think what is most useful to you is actually getting some direct help from the federal government. So I said back in March through the CARES Act, people got a check for $1,200, kids $500. In this bill, as it was moving forward, there was no direct payment, and that to me was very, very disturbing. So what I did is teamed up with somebody whose political views are very, very different than mine, a Republican senator from Missouri, Senator Crowley, and Senator Hawley.
Hi, Senator. You're back with us now. There was an issue with the microphone. We heard you just until you were explaining to everyone about your partnership with Senator Hawley for payments to individuals.
Okay, I'm sorry, and this is just one of the other things that the pandemic is doing. And I'm sorry for the kind of breakdown here in technology. What I was saying is that working with Senator Hawley of Republican of Missouri, we were able to get into this bill checks for $600 for working class families, $600 for an adult, and $600 for each child. So a family of four would get $2,400, and that would also include, obviously, senior citizens. So I'm not quite sure what people heard me say or didn't hear me say, but I think probably, Katie, it would be best for me to answer some questions.
Okay. We will take our first call now. As a reminder to folks on the phone, if you have a question for Senator Sanders, you can press *3 on your keypad to ask a question. Senator, we're going to take our first call from Monroe, who lives in Williamstown. Monroe has a question. Monroe is 80 years old and makes $1,400 in Social Security per month, and has a question for you about increasing that. So, Monroe, at this time, you are live on the call. Please go ahead with your question for Senator Sanders.
Yes. Sanders, do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
We can hear you, sir.
I think years back, you and I shared the meal at the Wayside Restaurant in the Vermont Road. Never. My wife passed away on the 12th. Now
Sorry to hear that.
was with $300, and now looks like I'm going to have to try to keep this going on about 12 plus a small disabled American veterans check that I get each month. But I just wonder, I mean, according to my thing, I'm going to raise about $12 more than I did last year. And where does that come out to being fair at all? I don't understand that.
Monroe, it is not fair. I can't tell you it is fair because it isn't fair. You and many, many thousands of other Vermont seniors are struggling. What I believe, and I think President-elect Biden has campaigned on, is the need to increase Social Security benefits in this country. There are too many seniors who are having to make the choice about heating their homes in the wintertime or buying the prescription drugs that they need. They're struggling. And in the richest country in the history of the world, that is absolutely unacceptable. So, Monroe, count me in as somebody who will fight as hard as we can to raise Social Security benefits. And also, by the way, to raise the COLA benefits that people receive every single year. The way COLAs are formulated does not work the way that they should. Seniors are not getting what they need to keep up with inflation. Also, I will tell you that we're working hard to lower the cost of prescription drugs, which is a real burden for seniors, to make Medicare a stronger program so people do not have to pay as much out of their own pockets to get the health care that they need. And again, I would say that with a little bit of luck, Monroe, you'll be getting a check for $600. Not a huge amount of money, but it should help a little bit.
Thank you, Senator Sanders, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Monroe, and for your question. We're going to take our next question, Senator, from Peggy, who's calling from Norwich. Peggy from Norwich has a question about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Peggy, you are now live on the phone with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders, and thank you for inviting me to this call tonight. Food, that's the one word that I want to put out there, food. There's clearly a huge need right now people are hungry. Look at those huge long lines, miles long, to get a box of food. So is there anything in this current bill to increase the amount of SNAP benefits, which haven't really been increased for 11 years? And if not, what can we do in the future soon to increase that so that people can actually go to the grocery store and buy what they need?
Well, Peggy, I could not agree with you more. I know just literally a few blocks away from where I live in Burlington, Route 127 was shut down and hundreds of cars lined up to get emergency food packages distributed by the Vermont National Guard. And this is true all over the state. This is true all over the country. We are looking at record-breaking levels of hunger in America. And that is just unacceptable. What I will tell you is that in this bill, there are actually two bills coming down the pike simultaneously, both of them very big bills. One of them is what we call an omnibus bill. It's the appropriations bill, and Senator Leahy actually is the ranking member on that committee, working hard on that. And there's the other bill that I'm working on, which is the COVID emergency relief bill. In the COVID bill, and the numbers keep fluctuating a little bit, there is about, as I understand it, over $20 billion for nutrition assistance. And that is money that will go out to emergency food shelves all across this country. There is also another effort, I think, in the appropriations bill to significantly raise SNAP, or as it used to be called, food stamp benefits. But there's nothing that I can add to what you have said. In the United States of America, people should not be going hungry, and they are right now. Unacceptable, and the government has got to respond forcefully to address that crisis.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Peggy, for that question. We're going to take our next question at this point from folks who are watching us live on the Senator's website. Senator, this question's coming from the website from Ginger Hobbs, and Ginger would like to know, what are we doing to stop evictions right now in this country?
Good. A number of things. There is and will continue to be, unless I am very mistaken, a moratorium on evictions. Because in the midst of this terrible economic crisis, millions of people are unable to pay their rent and face eviction. That is a major, major crisis, and it has to be addressed. In this bill, the COVID relief bill alone, there will be $25 billion for rental assistance. And that is the danger we have now. It's one thing to have a moratorium to prevent people from being thrown out on the street, but that doesn't mean that the rent they owe is disappearing. They still owe that rent, and it is accumulating every single month. This rental assistance package will provide help to those individuals and families to actually pay back rent. Once again, $25 billion sounds like a lot of money, but in a nation of 320 million people, actually is not. We need more. But to answer Ginger's question, yes, there is money in the bill that we're working on right now for rental assistance.
Thank you, Senator, for that. And we're going to stay now on housing, and we're going to take a call from Watson. Watson is coming to us today from White River Junction and is currently struggling with homelessness. And Watson also has a question for you on housing. Watson, you're now live with Senator Sanders.
Thank you. Good evening, Senator. I would like to know what the state of Vermont or the federal government can do to increase the availability of housing here in Vermont. I've been looking for a place to live, and at the present time, I'm homeless. I'm living in a hotel, and I've been looking for an apartment for about 7 months. There's not much available. I'm also the live-in caretaker for a friend of mine that's blind. We're originally from New Orleans. We've been in Vermont since October of 2019. And we're looking to stay here and be good citizens and contribute, but we're having one heck of a time finding a place to live.
Well, Watson, thanks very much for that question. We don't often discuss it. We talk about the healthcare crisis. We talk about the climate change crisis. We talk about racial justice. We don't talk enough about housing. And what Watson is describing is a reality that exists in Vermont, all over this country. Very, very hard for working people to be able to afford housing. In this country, some 19 million American families are paying 50% of their limited incomes for housing. That's pretty crazy. You don't have money left over to do much else if you're paying 50% of your income for housing. And in Vermont, the cost of housing is very, very high. It's higher or lower depending upon where you live. So, Watson, what I will fight for is two things. It's the need to build. We need about 10 million units of affordable housing in this country, and that's what I'm going to fight for. And when we talk about affordable housing, we also have to talk about lower income housing. We have not built the kind of low income housing that folks who don't have a lot of money desperately need. And what we're looking at today, it really is quite painful and unbelievable, is 500,000 Americans Tonight, 500,000 Americans are homeless. They're either sleeping out on the street, or they're living in emergency shelters, or they're getting, help by their states to stay in motels or whatever. And that is unacceptable. So when we talk, and you're going to hear a lot of talk, especially, after Biden comes in, about rebuilding our infrastructure, I consider affordable housing and low-income housing to be part of that infrastructure need that has to be addressed. The other thing we have to do is get more money into programs like Section 8 to make housing more affordable for lower income people. So, Watson, thanks a lot. Thank you very much for raising a terribly important issue. And it's an issue that I hope.
Thank God for the state of Vermont. They've been very good to us. And I really do appreciate all that the state has done. And I hope that there can be a quick resolution and, we find a solution. Thank you. Good evening, Senator.
Well, thank you very much. And a lot of the federal money that has come into the state, what the state has done is make sure that people are not out on the streets, but they're staying in hotels or motels.
Thank you, Watson, for that question. Senator, we have a few questions here about healthcare, in particular Medicare. The first call we're going to take is from Ronald. Ronald is a Vietnam veteran who lives in Randolph, and he has a question about Medicare for you. Ronald, you're now live with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Ronald.
Okay. My question is, well, first of all, I don't understand what I'm qualified for under Medicare for benefits. I'm pretty healthy, but I'm getting older, and I'm going to need more and more, I'm sure. And I'm not sure who I can talk to clearly to get understanding of what I'm qualified for and what's my best options. I've been going up to the White River Veterans facility there, and they're taking good care of me. But I don't know if I'm really if I'm signed up for the best options for me. I have a need.
Ronald, let me jump in. Ronald,
Yes.
do you have a pencil? Do you have a pen or a pencil in front of you? Okay, I would like you. I would like you and anybody else who's listening, who has an issue or a question regarding Medicare or Medicaid or whatever it may be, to call my office. Our toll-free number, Ronald, is 1-800-339-9834. That's 1-800-339-9834. And if you're around the Burlington area, it's 862-0697. So we have some very knowledgeable case workers, Ronald, who'll be able to answer your questions and give you some good information about Medicare.
Thank you very much, Senator.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it. And thanks for being live here this evening.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ronald, for that question. We also, for folks on live, that phone number is available at the bottom of your screen. We'll take a next question, Senator, from the folks who are watching via our live stream. We have a question here from one of our online viewers, Jim. Jim wants to know when there will be an expansion of Medicare and how can it help seniors and others who are struggling with high healthcare costs.
Well, Jim, that is an issue dear to my heart. We have, in my view, a dysfunctional and cruel healthcare system. And I want everybody to appreciate that in every other major industrialized country, that means in Canada, throughout Europe, healthcare is seen as a right, not a privilege, and not a job benefit. 50 miles, well, not 50 miles, but we border, of course, on Canada. And if you have friends in Canada, they will tell you that they can go to any doctor that they want. They go to any hospital that they want, and they do not have to take out their wallet or their credit card. It is publicly funded, and you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. No such thing as the deductible or a copayment, no premiums. It is covered in the general tax base. And because their Medicare for all single payer system is so much more efficient than our private healthcare system, dominated by large insurance companies and the drug companies, they are spending per person about half as much as we spend. So they spend $6,000 a year per person on healthcare. We spend double that, and yet we end up with 90 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. We have 500,000 people going bankrupt every year because of medically related bills. We have some 60,000 people in this country who die every year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. So as you may know, Jim, I have been the leader here in the United States Senate in taking on the insurance companies and the drug companies in fighting for a Medicare for all single payer system. And again, on the Medicare for all, no premiums, no deductibles, no co-payments, comprehensive coverage for all healthcare needs, free choice as to what doctor or hospital you choose to go to. Now, obviously, the reason we don't have that is there is very strong resistance from the insurance companies who make billions and billions of dollars a year in profit off of the current system, and very strong opposition from the drug companies who in some cases charge us 10 times more for the same exact medicine sold in Canada or in Europe. I recall last year taking a group of folks from Detroit, Michigan into Ontario, Canada to buy insulin, and they bought the same exact product for 1/10 of the price because Canada controls the prices that the drug companies can charge. So, Jim, we are making progress on this issue. We've come a long way in recent years, and I think people increasingly understand that our system needs fundamental overhaul. President-elect Biden does not agree with me on Medicare for all, but what he will do is expand the Affordable Care Act so that many millions more people will be able to get access to the health care that they need. But this is a fight that I am not going to give up on, and that we will sooner or later, hopefully sooner, win. Healthcare is a human right, should be available to all without having to take out your credit card or your wallet.
Thank you for that answer, Senator. As a reminder to folks on the phones, if you have a question for Senator Sanders, you can press *3 on your phone to ask that question. One of our staff members will be happy to speak with you. For folks who are joining us live on our website at sanders.senate.gov/live, you can ask a question in the chat. But again, for our callers, you can press *3 now to ask the senator a question. Senator, for our next question, we've had some folks who are having challenges with home heating, as obviously it's getting colder in Vermont. We've got snow on the ground across most of the state right now. So with that, we're going to take a question from Bernard. Bernard has a question about fuel assistance and electricity. Bernard, you're now on live with Senator Sanders. Please go ahead with your question.
Good evening. My question is there going to be any assistance for either fuel or electricity this year? If it can't be, can we get a tax credit at the end of the year on the tax forms for what it cost us?
Well, what there will be, and I know Senator Leahy is working on this as well as his Congressman Welch, Bernard, there will be hopefully an increase in LIHEAP funding. And LIHEAP is the Low Income Heating Assistance Program, which is so very important to cold weather states like Vermont. So we are fighting hard to make sure that nobody in Vermont goes cold in the wintertime, and they have the help that they need to pay their fuel bills.
That sounds like a good idea.
Good. And I like your first
Thank
name,
you.
Bernard. Bernard, you got a great first name.
We've met 4 times.
All right, good. Nice to chat with you.
Thank you for calling, Bernard. We're going to take our next question. Obviously, Senator, we've got a lot of questions here about Social Security and Medicare, but we know that there's a whole host of issues that older Vermonters face, including student loans and other challenges with the high cost of certain aspects of living. So we're going to take our next call from Paul. Paul is calling from Johnson and has a question about student loans, particularly Parent Plus loans. Paul from Johnson, you're now live with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Bernie. How you doing?
Okay, Paul, how's it going?
Good. I want to thank you for returning my email I got today from you, and I actually highlighted a lot of my concerns about the federal student loan issue, along with healthcare issues, and I sort of nod away at your ear. I also met you at the Johnson State College like probably 2 decades ago when you were
Yep.
Yeah, and it was down in the cafeteria thing and blah, 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 and my next door neighbor, anyways, I just got rid of my wife's car, it's a Subaru, and it had 2 decades of Bernie stickers all over it. Yeah.
I hope they didn't take away too much of the value of your car.
Well, I gave it to Good News Garage, and the lady's loving it, and she probably is a Bernie lover too. So.
Okay, good.
So anyways, the issue that I wanted to raise, and social awareness for other people too. I'm 64 years old. I don't see myself as elderly. However, I love what I do for work, and I want to work until I just can't. I'd like to be able to someday draw on my Social Security, but where I'm coming from is everything that I have surplus for savings or whatever goes to my kids. My wife died some 6.5 years ago, and so I'm committed to what I do for work, and I'm committed to my kids. And it's pretty easy living with those goals, and they're good goals. Where it ties into the federal loans is, for one thing, my kids, in today's economy, one of my oldest is unemployed because of the pandemic. My daughter is barely working. She's a massage therapist. And she's sort of being not forced, but she's working in a resort area, which is extremely nerving about the pandemic.
Right.
And here I am. I'm still working. I'm paying my bills. I have a Parent Plus loan that I had with VSAC, which I satisfied with VSAC, and then they transferred it off to Kentucky Higher Ed, which is a federal loan organization. So my kids have student loans from VSAC. I have a Parent Plus thing that they sort of cornered me into back in the 1990s when I, was trying to do the all-American good thing for my kids and didn't read the fine print, of course.
What kind of interest? Paul, can I ask you what kind of interest rates? Do you happen to know what interest rates you're paying on your loan?
Quite frankly, I don't know what they are currently.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it's suspended. The payments are suspended right now because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Correct.
So quite frankly, maybe this sounds illegal and I'll go to a federal jail. Hopefully I'll get free food. But, I'm just ignoring it right now because I don't need the stress. I want to give everything I have of surplus to my kids. I'm
All
committed.
right, Paul, let me jump in. I think I know where you're coming from here. And I want you to know, and please appreciate this, you're not alone in this situation. I have talked to people in Vermont, all over this country, who are not only paying their own student debt still, they're paying their kids as well. And what I believe, frankly, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, most politicians don't talk like that. I do, as people in Vermont know. I think there's something a little bit crazy when we got 50 people on top who own more wealth than the bottom half of America, when 45% of all new income goes to the top 1%, when during this pandemic, you have these huge companies making incredible profits, the very rich getting richer. What I have said and what I believe, Paul, is that we should cancel all student debt in America. I think working families are struggling so hard. And I have talked, your story is one story. You're a parent who did the right thing. You want to see your kids get a college education, and God bless you. You did what good parents do. And you have other kids out there who maybe don't have parental support. They're going $50,000, $100,000 into debt. Talk to a young lady who graduated dental school, $400,000 in debt. And again, in other countries around the world, that does not take place. Kids should not have to go into debt. Parents should not have to go into debt in order to see their kids get a decent education. So what we're working on, Paul, and I think we're having some success here. We're working on two things. Number one is cancellation of student debt, and number two, making public colleges and universities tuition free so that young people don't leave school with debt. Where we are right now is, again, my views are different than President-elect Biden's in many cases. His proposal is to cancel. I don't know how this impacts you or your kids. His proposal is to cancel the first $10,000 of student debt. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Chuck Schumer want to cancel $50,000 of a student debt, first $50,000. I would go even further. So we're making progress, and we'll keep you updated on that. But I just wanted to say that you're not the only parents who are struggling over this issue. And I believe in the next year or two, you'll see us make some progress on it.
Thank you very much, Bernie. By profession, I'm a vocational rehabilitation counselor, so my job is to help people find a way to make a living and stay in Vermont, and that's people with disabilities. So
Good.
they're dealing with a two-tier challenge today. So you keep up the good work, and I'm really glad to hear from you.
Well, you keep up the great work as well, Paul. Katie?
Thank you, Paul, for that question. Senator, we're going to take our next call from Fred. Fred's calling you from Bonneville, Vermont. And Fred has a question about how the economy is doing so well while seniors are struggling so much. Fred from Bonneville, you're now on with Senator Sanders.
Hey, thank you, Senator. I really appreciate everything you're doing. As a 78-year-old from Brooklyn, I identify with a lot of your roots and what's happening. My question is one of fairness and one of logic. This COLA, as we both agree, is ridiculous. It's based on a system which is almost designed to keep seniors and Social Security from getting a raise every year. The amount that we get each year typically doesn't even approximate the increase in Medicare costs. And at the same time, every night I hear about the stock market going through the roof, And again, the equation that they equate the economy with the stock market. I equate the economy with the people I meet in the grocery store who are having a hard time paying for their basket of food. And my suggestion and my question is it possible to have something pegged to the stock market gains that would replace the food?
That's a funny question, Fred.
I realize it's funny and almost ridiculous in asking
I know.
it because many are opposed to it. But I go back to the question.
I know. As I understand your question, it's an important question, because what you're saying is people are turning on the TV and the stock market is soaring. They're reading in the papers that major corporations like Amazon and other corporations are seeing huge profits. And people like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk are making billions and billions and billions more in profits and in wealth during this pandemic. And yet senior citizens and average people are struggling like never before. And I think Fred hit the nail on the head. How do we judge an economy? And you, in my view, and I think Fred's view, you judge an economy based on how ordinary people are doing. How's the average person doing? And the truth of the matter is that while the very, very wealthy are becoming phenomenally wealthier, and we have massive income and wealth inequality, ordinary people, especially during this pandemic, are struggling. So what do you got? You got half of the workers in America, Fred, are living paycheck to paycheck. That means at the end of the week, they got nothing. They got nothing in the bank. Somebody in the family gets sick. They don't have the money to go to a doctor, or they have to go deeply in debt. And maybe they have to go to some disgusting payday lender and pay 100% interest rates on a $500 loan. You got 90 million people who are uninsured or underinsured in America. We just talked with Paul about student debt, tens of millions of people struggling with student debt. You got people paying 50% of their limited incomes on housing. We had a question earlier from White River Junction about housing. That is the reality. And the truth is that right now, as a result of the pandemic, working families are struggling more than at any time since the Great Depression of the 1930s, while the very, very rich are getting richer. So in my view, I think what we've got to do is have a tax on wealth, raise substantial sums of money so that we can help working families in this country. And again, I want to get back to a question asked earlier about the elderly. We have got to increase funding for the Meals on Wheels program. We've got to increase Social Security benefits. 20% of the elderly in this country, and many people who are dealing with disabilities, we didn't talk about the disability community, are struggling. They're living in poverty. This is the richest country in history, and we should not accept that. And that's what the struggle is right here in Washington. People talk about fairness, and I think many of you know that what goes on is billionaires spend huge amounts of money on elections. They elect people who represent their interest, and that's what I'm struggling with right now. There are people here who want to give tax breaks to billionaires and not give a nickel in help to working families. That's exactly the battles that we're waging every single day right now. So, Fred, your point is a very, very good point. There is something fundamentally wrong about our economy where people who own a lot of stock, bonds, they're doing phenomenally well, while ordinary people are really suffering. And that's the struggle we're engaged in right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred. Senator, you just mentioned disabilities. We know a lot of Vermonters who struggle with disabilities and who take prescription medications to help them with those disabilities. We've got some more calls here with questions about prescription drug costs. We're going to take our next call from Gary. Gary's calling in from Williston with a question about the price of prescription drugs. Gary, you're now on live with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator. First, I want to thank you for all your efforts and the things that you and Senator Lay have been doing. I think that both you gentlemen have been doing an outstanding job in representing the people's interests, and I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
My question falls a lot in line with what your comment earlier on prescription drugs were. They're less expensive than almost any place in the country. And, you know, what they've been trying to use to control it, of course, are generic drugs. Now, most recently, one of the drugs I take the patent was within a year or two of expiring, and now they've gone to court to extend the patent out to 2026. And, you know, if the drug companies continue these types of tactics, we're always going to be behind the 8 ball on which call. You know, I don't mind that the drug saves my life. And by the way, they tell you if you stop taking it, you have to worry about that too. But the other side of it is, you know, should people have to spend their life savings to stay alive because medical? And to your point earlier, I call it medicine or medical for profit. Since we've changed to that type of scenario, it's been a pretty sad situation right up and down the line. So I guess my question really comes down to, is there any way that, you know, we can pass legislation so that the courts don't artificially inflate the patent rights of the drugs that are out there?
I don't know. Gary, I think I got your question, but somehow or another my volume went off here. I didn't hear everything, but let me give you answer what I thought I heard you say, and if I missed anything, just come back and ask me it. Gary, I deal a lot with the pharmaceutical industry, and I will tell you what no other member of Congress will tell you. They are crooks. They engage in price fixing and collusion. They are a bad news group of people. They have incredible wealth. They make huge amounts of money. Their CEOs get exorbitant salaries, and they could care less about the needs of the American people. And they lie a whole lot. What you're describing is simply one of their tactics. So they have a patent for a drug, and they come up with an excuse. They change the color of the pill, or they do some minor modification, and they say, we have a new pill, and we have to extend the patent. So it cannot become a generic. We are at the very top of my priority list, along with healthcare, is taking on these greedy people. And there are 3 approaches that we are going forward with. And we'll see what the Biden administration does. And the reason that, Gary, that these guys are able to do what they do is they are incredibly powerful. They spend billions of dollars in lobbying in Washington and state legislatures. They make large campaign contributions.
We heard you about 3/4 of the way through. You're back with us now, but I think we got the vast majority of it.
All right, I'm not sure why we're having these technical difficulties, but just to say to Gary, we're working hard on this issue. There are 3 approaches that we're going to use. Number 1, we're going to do maybe most significantly what the Canadians do. And what the Canadians do is they look at what countries around the world are paying, other countries around the world. It's a weird kind of thing. And they look at averaging. So they look at what Japan pays. They look at what Italy pays, what Australia pays, what the UK pays. And they say to the drug companies, we are not going to pay a nickel more than you are paying. Number 2, we are going to make it easier for people to buy and for pharmacists and distributors to purchase prescription drugs in Canada, Mexico, and in other countries around the world where prices are much lower. And the third thing, of course, is we're going to have Medicare negotiate prices with the pharmaceutical industry. So this is an issue. There is no reason in the world where we have to pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs and literally and sometimes 10 times more than other countries. I think you're going to see some action in the coming year.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you again, Gary, for that question. And thank you, Senator Sanders. We have just a few minutes left, but we can take another call if that works for you, Senator Sanders.
Yep.
Our next call here is going to be from Noreen. Noreen is calling us from Bennington. She received one of your flyers in the Senator Sanders at her home, and she has a question. She lives in an old building and has some questions about rehabilitation for our infrastructure. Noreen from Bennington, you're on live with Senator Sanders.
Thank you. Evening, Senator Sanders, and a blessed Christmas season to you and your family. I thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
Thank you, Noreen.
I listened to your things, and I've been blessed when I've had issues and I've had to call the office. My question is, I look around and I know because I'm retired and on disability, and it took me till just recently to get some housing, and so my whole check except for $42 and disability went from my rent for quite a long time. But I see around, and I'm happy that older buildings are being rehabilitated, like the Putnam and stuff like that. But there's old schools and other buildings throughout our state that are just sitting desolate, or they're being torn down, and just a parking lot or just a vacant lot is being left there. Is there something in the plan maybe down the road? I know other issues are more to the importance at times, but because of the housing situation, that these places could be rehabilitated so that the seniors especially, because I'm 70, and that could have good housing instead of us seeing a lot of these beautiful, they were at one time, the architecture you see, buildings be torn down and funds appropriated so the seniors would have, decent places to live in and not pay such high rent.
Noreen, I think that is an excellent idea, and we have seen some of that in Vermont, but we have a lot more to do. Your point is exactly right. And we got some beautiful old buildings. It's going to require effort and money and work to rehabilitate them and make them into affordable housing and maybe affordable housing for seniors. But that is exactly what we have got to do. And you know what? When we do things like that, we not only beautify, if you like, improve our communities and create affordable housing, we create jobs for working people as well. All right, so it's a win-win situation. Noreen, it's an excellent idea. And yes, that is exactly one of the things that we've got to do to address the housing crisis. Thanks so much for the question.
Thank you so much, and that for listening, and it's so wonderful to know that we have you working for our benefit here in Vermont.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noreen, for that question. Senator Sanders, we have a couple minutes for some closing remarks, if you want to, for these Vermonters who are on with you tonight. I just would like to make sure before we conclude that for folks whose questions we did not get to, please know that we do have your information. For anybody who needs assistance from our office, Senator Sanders already provided this information, but just so everyone has it, if you need help with a federal agency, our 800 number, which is toll-free in Vermont, is 800-339-9834. That's 800-339-9834. And in the Burlington area, you can call 862-0697. Or you can fill out a request assistance form on our website at sanders.senate.gov. So Senator Sanders, with that, I just want to turn it back to you for any closing remarks you may have.
Well, number one, let me just thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And let me again take this opportunity to wish everybody a very healthy and wonderful Christmas in this very, very difficult time. And hopefully next year we won't have to do this on the computer, but I will be able to get around the state. Love to do that. And we can each celebrate the holiday season together. I think, it's interesting that all of the questions touched on issues that millions and millions of people are struggling with, whether it is inadequate Social Security benefits, whether it's the high cost of prescription drugs, whether it is the housing crisis, whether it is student debt, um, uh, whether it is the inability of people to afford to keep warm in the wintertime. You guys have asked exactly the questions that are on the minds of people all over this country. So let me just say this. It has been, in my view, of course, I speak only for myself, a difficult 4 years under President Trump. We've had a president who is a pathological liar, a president who we have seen really doesn't believe in democracy. He lost an election and refuses to accept that reality. But a new day hopefully is coming. President-elect Biden will be inaugurated on January 20th. And I hope very much that we can fundamentally change the tone and direction of what is happening here in the nation's capital. And that is that we have got to use our resources to, as one of the callers said, pay attention to the needs of ordinary people. The rich are doing just wonderful. Big corporations are doing great. But working people, small businesses, kids, the elderly, those are folks who are hurting, and in many cases hurting very, very badly. This is America. People should not be hungry. People should not be homeless. People should not be unable to afford the medicine they need, not be in a position where they can't afford to go to a doctor. This should not be happening. So the struggle that we face now is to change the priorities of this country, to invest in ordinary people, and so that all of us can live with dignity and enjoy life as we should be able to do so. So with that, let me again wish everybody a very wonderful holiday season, and I am sure that next year is going to be a better one for all of us than this one has been. I can't imagine it being worse. And once again, we're going to have the opportunity to get together, to see each other, to see our kids, to see our grandchildren, to get to work without worrying about coming down with some terrible illness, and have an economy that is providing decent paying jobs for our workers. So with that, let me thank Katie and my staff for helping to organize this virtual town meeting. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will hopefully be able to get to see you all in person in the not too distant future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator.